Hi everyone, thank you for attending this online session about the Gilman Scholarship. My name is Belinda Christensen and I'm one of the Gilman Scholarship advisors here at Temple University Education Abroad. And this session is for students who are planning to apply for the Gilman Scholarship and are getting ready to start the application process. So first, a little bit about the Gilman Scholarship. It is a national scholarship competition, and the mission of the program is to promote diversity both among the kinds of students who study abroad and also among the regions where students study abroad in the world. So that mission is something that's really important to keep in mind as you're approaching your application, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail later on. First, a little bit about the eligibility requirements. Students need to be U.S. citizens. You need to be an undergraduate student. You need to be receiving a federal Pell Grant at the time that you're studying abroad. And you need to be doing a program for academic credit that's for at least 28 days in country. You can't be studying abroad in anywhere that's currently under a State Department travel warning or Cuba. And if you're studying abroad in Mexico, then you need to be studying abroad in an area of Mexico that's not currently under State Department travel warning. Scholarships are for up to $5,000. For the semester, usually the average is about $4,000, and for summer, it's about $3,000. If you're studying a critical need language, and you can see the list there of examples of critical need languages, you can be eligible to receive an additional $3,000 scholarship. So the total possible award for students who are studying critical need languages could be up to $8,000. Some award statistics. Usually each cycle about 30% of applicants are awarded, and you can see that the majority of them have been students who were studying outside of Western Europe. Also, many students were studying languages, especially critical need languages, so that's something to keep in mind. And Temple students absolutely have success with this scholarship. We always have winners every semester, so if you're eligible for the scholarship, then definitely apply. And that's what we're here for here in the office. We have advisors that specifically advise for the Gilman Scholarship to be able to look at your essays, give you feedback so that you can revise and perfect and make a strong application. So a little more detail about the mission of the Gilman Scholarship. So within their mission, they really have priorities of making study abroad possible for students who are traditionally underrepresented in education abroad. So for example, that could be students with high financial need, students who are studying outside of Western Europe, Australia, New Zealand, students with diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds, students from a diverse range of institutions, which could include students who have attended community college or are currently attending community college, and students with disabilities. So those are a couple examples of students who are traditionally underrepresented in the field. So there are two essays that are part of the application process, and the one is the statement of purpose, which is it's a personal statement, so it's your chance to really tell your story about who you are, how you fit in with the mission of the Gilman, and how the study abroad program that you've chosen really fits in with your long-term plan for yourself. The other essay is a proposal for a project that you'll do to promote study abroad and the Gilman Scholarship to students if you're awarded the Gilman Scholarship once you come back from studying abroad. So we'll talk in more detail about both of these essays now, first starting with the personal statement. So these are the prompt questions for the personal statement, and you can see there are a lot of questions. Each of them has a number of sub-questions, so sometimes students don't really know where to start. And I've definitely seen students get started by just going down the list and answering each question in kind of a short answer format, which I think is fine to get your thoughts down on paper. But by the end, you want your final draft to be something that is a coherent essay in and of itself that answers the majority of the questions, but is its own piece. without being just a series of answers to questions. So you want to think about what the connections to all of your answers to these questions are, how they relate to each other, so that by the end you're answering most of the questions, but not necessarily in the order that they're asked, unless that makes sense for your essay. But the important thing is that you're really telling your story. So the first thing to think about when you're approaching the statement of purpose is really who you are and how you fit in with the mission of the Gilman Scholarship. So if you are a member of a group that's traditionally underrepresented in study abroad, then that's something that you need to say in the essay, because on the application, for example, there's no checkbox that will say, check here if you're a first-generation college student. If you are a first-generation college student, then you need to put that somewhere in your essay, because otherwise your reader won't know that you are. So if you're a member of any of these groups, that's something that you definitely need to write in your essay. And then you want to think about the barriers that you may have overcome to be able to study abroad or even to come to college. So that could be financial barriers, that could be barriers related to the support of your family or needing to leave a job to be able to study abroad. So it could be any number of things. But those are the kinds of things to think about in terms of your story, how you've gotten to the place where you are now, and then so you can move into why you chose the program that you chose and how it fits in with your broader plan. So when you're talking about the program that you've chosen, you really want to be more specific than just why you want to study abroad. Oftentimes when I look at first drafts of Gilman essays, there's usually a large section about why students want to study abroad in general. But you really want to be a lot more specific and talk about the particulars of your program, the particulars of the country that you chose, and also the specific program. So what features of the program really fit in with what your goals are for your career or continuing your academic studies. Maybe it's a homestay, maybe it's internship offerings, or maybe there are volunteer or service learning opportunities as part of your program, or particular coursework that really fits into what your goals are for yourself. So think about who you are, how you got to the place that you are now, and how you came to the decision of choosing this particular study abroad program in this particular location. And finally, we say you want to present yourself as a potential cultural ambassador. So by that, we really mean you want to demonstrate that you have put the work into looking into the program, looking into the country. What are some ways that you really plan to engage with the host culture while you're there? So it's not just all about you meeting your goals, but also you interacting and engaging with people in a meaningful way. So that could be, for example, a student who has built the skills to be flexible and adaptable because they had to move a bunch of times when they were in elementary school. And now they're ready to kind of transfer those skills to this study abroad program on a much grander scale. So that could be one example there. So I have a couple examples here of taking kind of a broad general statement and turning it into something much more concrete and useful for the essay. So for example, this student said, I think it's important for people to broaden their horizons. Studying abroad will help me do that. So whereas that might be true, it's probably true for everybody who's going to study abroad. So you want to make a statement that's much more personal to you so that your readers can really get a sense of who you are and what's important to you. So, for example, the student turned that into, as a woman working her way through college, I haven't had many opportunities to interact with people beyond my classmates and colleagues. Because this university's courses in Berlin are offered to both American and German students, I will be able to meet people from another culture while still staying focused on my academic progress. So she's really established kind of who she is, what's important to her, and she's touched on and anticipated talking about the barriers that she's overcome to be able to study abroad. So that is an example. Other examples, oftentimes I'll see students writing I'm a leader or I'm open-minded, and I think that's important. But you have to keep in mind that the reader, the person who's going to be reading and reviewing your application, is never going to meet you. So they don't necessarily have any reason to believe that you're a leader unless you give concrete examples for what makes you a leader and how you plan to use those leadership skills or that open-mindedness while you're on your particular study abroad program. So another example here could be, I love Italian culture so much, I'm president of the Italian club. So that's fine, but even better might be, as president of the Italian club, I want to study in Rome so that when I return, I can share stories with the club about my experiences learning how spoken Italian in Italy is different from the classroom Italian we learn here. So that's great because the student is really anticipating a tie-in between their personal statement and the proposal for a project that they might be able to do when they return from studying abroad. And that's one of the characteristics of a successful Gilman essay is some kind of tie-in between the two essays so that they're not separate, even though they are literally separate entities and separate essays. They have some kind of connection to each other so that the whole application makes sense as a coherent whole. So that brings me to the follow-on project. And again, you see here are the questions and the sub-questions to prompt that essay. So you're really thinking about a project that you could do once you return to a specific audience to promote study abroad. So you want to talk about who your audience is, why they're an important audience, what the specifics of the project are, and how you plan to pull it off. So a couple examples here. You really want to think about what your talents and interests are. So a lot of people do a presentation, which is totally fine, but you don't have to do a presentation. For example, if you have other skills and other interests, students have done art exhibitions, they've made websites, they've made films, they've put together information fairs. So there's a lot of things that you can do in addition to a presentation. And the Gilman website actually has a lot of great resources and ideas on their page, on their follow-on project page. So definitely make sure to check that out. You want to choose a specific audience. So it wouldn't necessarily be students everywhere, but it could be a specific audience that you think could be important to promote study abroad to. So you can really think about, well, what makes you a good candidate for the Gilman Scholarship in terms of their diversity priorities, and what other people you know in your life who share those characteristics with you, and what connection you have with them. So that, I think, will help you describe why your audience is an important audience to reach. And then you want to think about how you're going to get the word out to those students or to that target audience about your project to get them to come to that art exhibition or that presentation, and what you're going to do to make the presentation happen. So if you need to reserve space, who are you going to contact? Have you already started discussion with somebody to collaborate with, and things like that? So a couple examples. We've had a student, for example, who attended Community College of Philadelphia, and that's where he got his first idea that he wanted to learn a new language and study abroad. So when he was thinking about his follow-on project, his project was to go back to CCP and present there about studying abroad. We've also had students who maybe first got the idea or their interest in their host country when they were in high school, so they went back to their old high school. So it doesn't necessarily have to be here at Temple. It could be somewhere in the community, another community that you have a connection to. But it, of course, could be here at Temple if you're involved in a student organization or other students in your major. If your major is kind of presents more of a challenge to be able to study abroad, for example. So there's lots of different things that you can do. So you want to think about your talents, you want to think about who you know, and you want to think about, thinking creatively about a project that you can do. So definitely check out the Gilman Scholarships website. So some final essay tips. You really want to use your best writing process here and plan to leave time for several revisions. So even if you're a student who is used to handing in a first draft of a paper for class and getting a good grade on it, the stakes are a little bit higher for the Gilman Scholarship. So you want to plan to leave that time to get feedback from multiple people and make multiple revisions. We really, really encourage students to use the Writing Center. All the tutors there have seen Gilman applications and scholarship applications in general and can really give you meaningful feedback about putting together a skillful essay. Have your friends look at it, have professors look at it, and you're also going to make an appointment with one of the study abroad advisors here to have your essay reviewed for content. Remember that the scholarship reviewers are never going to meet you. So there's no interview for the process. It's really your essays. That's all you have to tell them who you are and why you fit into their mission. So you really want to tell the scholarship reviewers, you want them to think like, hey, this student's going to do something really great with her life or with his life, so I want to give them money to be able to study abroad on this particular program. The application process is, the application itself is on the Gilman Scholarships website, so you can go there to access that. You want to order your transcripts from Temple and any other college or university that you've attended. Although they do accept unofficial transcripts for your previous colleges and universities, if you're a transfer student, your Temple transcript does have to be official. So what you're going to do, you're going to order your transcript from the registrar's office. You're going to open it, which seems like the wrong thing to do, but you're going to open it and you're going to upload it directly into the application digitally. So make sure to do that now if you haven't already, especially during peak times. It can take a while to get your transcript. So I would suggest ordering your transcript now and selecting to pick up your transcript so that you have it instead of waiting for it to come in the mail. You want to draft your essays and make an appointment to talk to a tutor at the Writing Center, and also make an appointment to talk to one of the study abroad advisors here in our office. We ask that you send a draft to us in advance of your appointment so that we can have time to read it, and that leaves more time during our meeting to actually talk instead of reading. And please also bring a printout of your draft to the appointment. When you apply, you're going to choose a study abroad advisor from a drop-down list. So you're going to choose whoever you met with from our office. You also will need to choose a financial aid advisor, and you don't necessarily need to meet with somebody from the financial aid office unless you have questions. But you can actually select anybody from that drop-down list, and they'll get a notification once you've completed your application, and they'll know what to do. They'll go in and certify on your behalf. And if you have questions, feel free to meet with somebody there, but you don't have to as part of the Gilman application.
The application deadline for spring and summer early decision is during the first week in October, and the summer and fall deadline is during the first week in March. So you can check the Gilman's website for the specific deadline during the cycle that you're applying for. You can also see that we have an internal deadline for submitting your draft to an advisor here at Education Abroad to receive feedback. And the reason that we have that deadline is to make sure that you have time to make meaningful revisions to your drafts. So it's always at least a week before the national deadline, so you have time for that. Really, in our experience, students are much more successful when they take time to make really multiple revisions of their application essays. So if you're missing that internal deadline, then you're really at a disadvantage with your application. Another thing to note is that the summer and fall deadline often occurs during spring break here at Temple, so you want to check Temple's academic calendar with the deadline for the Gilman. And if that's the case, then we suggest that you would complete your Gilman application before you leave campus, just in case you have any last minute questions or issues that come up. In particular, you want to make sure that you have the transcripts ready to go before you leave campus so that you don't have any issues with that. So that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening. I hope that you make an appointment with one of the advisors here and with a tutor at the Writing Center once you start the drafts of your essays. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can always feel free to give us a call. We can be reached at 215-204-0720, or you can email us at study.abroad@temple.edu, or you can just stop into our office. We're in 200 Tuttleman. Thanks, and I hope to see you soon.